you have an article that is kind of on the subject of stress. And, stress can be a part of that grief piece, that can be a small part of that, and of people processing through grief. And I really am excited to chat through this article today because I think it's a little bit different. Typically, you see articles that are like, 4 ways to help your stress and like 4 things that are great for stress and like things like that. But this is actually top 4 stress relievers that could actually be stealing your peace, which is so interesting. But I think that is almost like a better approach to talking about stress, is talking about maybe like what culture and what the world kind of says to do that might actually be hurting you and might not be letting you process stress, process grief the right way. So we're going to jump right into this article today. I'm excited to talk about it because Lord knows that I need help with my stress always. And so I was reading through this article and like, oh, really? Like that might actually be hurting me. So super excited. So my first question is just, who did you write this article to, and what kind of inspired you to write it?
Probably myself and I first. These are the things I have to remember desperately. But also for just my neighbor, my family, my friends, when we're trying to be responsible adults, and we're trying to figure out ways and be independent and go, I don't want to be a burden to anybody, but how do I manage this? I meet so many people outside of counseling that have walked through trying to find ways over and over and over again to manage their stress, to manage their symptoms. And something I am prone to as well, because I'm just human, is walking through that situation and noticing like, man, I feel worse after I've done all these things that are supposed to help me let go of my stress. What is that about? And so when I started thinking about that and praying through and going, well, you know what? There's really some need for balance, and there's really some need for what is my actual lack in this moment, not just my emotional state right now. Like, what's it telling me about? Those emotions have a purpose. They're telling me.
They're signals.
Yeah. It's like traffic cones. Like, there's a pothole. Don't go here. Help. So when that happens, I just wanted to write it in a way that was like, I know I need to do crunches. I know I need to eat celery instead of French fries. I know I need to do this, but and what? Because I like French fries. So that's kind of the heart behind it. Like,
I love it. The heart behind it. I like French fries, but you're telling me to eat healthy. I love that though. And I think that is so, so important because there is a balance, right? There is a total balance between resting and also not digging yourself into a hole and like, still getting out there, still being with people, which is still important, but also having that time to yourself. And it is such a balance. And I think that the way that you word things through this article is really helpful. So next question, could you just expand on what stress is? Obviously, we all kind of have the thing that we go to in our minds when we hear the word stress. But what would you, as a clinician, kind of, I guess, define stress as?
Yeah, in that place of, now forgive my non-clinical words because they fall out when I'm thinking, because I'm stressed, I'm agitated, I'm in a hyper state of awareness. I want to be all the way here. I want to be focused. I want to be present. And I'm putting a lot of energy into thinking on what it is you're asking. And I'm just using this moment as an example because I know for me, when stress kicks in, I'm hyper alert. I'm also worried. I'm kind of thinking heavily about what's going on. But my anxious thoughts start to manifest in my body in different ways for different people. So for myself, I know that sometimes it gets to tightness in my chest. It gets to, I sweat sometimes. Sometimes I can cry and sweat at the same time. I'm just super talented to be able to do those things because I'm human and I'm a girl. It comes out that way. But in that place, stress can come out in different ways. But it's that heightened place of you're thinking intently about something. Your emotional focus and your concern are focused really specifically on something that you want to do. And we interpret it as this is stress. It can be an environment. It can be if there's a house fire going on, I'm stressed. I'm worried. I'm thinking about it. But it's a state of attention, if I can put it that way. It's a focus. I get stressed when I think about many different things, and the levels of those stresses are different. Some of them are healthy, right? We need motivation of stress of, I'm going to be late for this meeting that's really important because we're going to do some important things together. That's a healthy stress. So like, I need to plan, I need to get ahead. But when it tips over to an unhealthy place, it's when my mind starts to kind of spin, and I can't stop thinking about what could go wrong. I start thinking about, oh my gosh, and if this, then this, and if this, then this. That's natural because we need to be good planners. We need to be prepared. But on the flip side, if I just keep going down that road, it kind of just ends us up feeling lonely and fearful, because that's the core that can end on that street. That's the old rickety house that I just don't want to live in. So if I pull back and I'm aware that some stress is natural, it's those hormones that we need to keep us activated. But if I slide down to that other place, that's when it becomes destructive. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And I like the idea of thinking about stress as sometimes being a good thing. I like thinking of healthy stress, and what's natural, because I do think that maybe even as Christians, we have a tendency to think, I'm stressed, I shouldn't be stressed, I should have peace, I should be totally relaxed. But sometimes, like you said, like stress, puts us into a position where we plan, where we, get to a good spot. It can be healthy. And so I like the idea of thinking about it that way. I think that that's really awesome. And, I have a generalized anxiety disorder. So my next question is, obviously there is an unhealthy stress. What would you say is kind of the difference between a diagnosed anxiety disorder and kind of experiencing stress on like that level, and healthy stress and just stress in general? If someone's stressed out a lot, do they have anxiety, or are they just stressed out a lot? What's kind of the difference as a counselor that you would say to that?
It's a great question. And I really appreciate you sharing that too, because it's hard when you're navigating those places in life and you're realizing, okay, what is the balance? Is my life really stressful? Are there a lot of elements that keep me busy that I'm choosing? Part of why we wrote the article was to go like, what are the elements that are necessary? What are the outside stressors that are just part of my life right now in this season?
Right. And obviously with an anxiety disorder, there are things that are just like stressors that you can choose to allow you to, get in that like tight chest place or not. You know what I mean? Even though it's still, a disorder and it's still a mental illness and it's still really difficult, there are situations like external, stressors that we have a choice over.
Yeah, yeah. And being willing to, and I'm so glad you brought the faith aspect into it too. So many times when we're walking through that, and I'll get to that place of, I'm stressed, I'm fearful of a lot of different things. Is one of them the aspect of my habit, because I grew up in a stressful environment. This was how we learned to respond. This is what we do when we're afraid. This is what we do when there's sadness. We respond in this way. Some of it is when we grow up. Some of it is how we learn to navigate. And some of it is how we've learned to make up for what we weren't shown. Sometimes it's like, well, this got me through. I'm surviving. I don't know. I'm just going to stay busy. I'm going to keep moving. And if I think 5 steps ahead, I'm going to be safe. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that's just how we've survived. And in the middle of it, when our faith is supposed to be informing us, sometimes the messages we can get is, like you pointed out, I'm stressed. I must be sinning. And then what comes in? Shame. Like, oh no, I don't trust God. Oh no, I got to do 5 Hail Marys, or oh no, I got to go walk around the block, and didn't go to church enough, or I didn't read my word enough, or like, they're good stressors to notice when you feel that pain and that fear of like, do I trust God then? Is this real? What's going on? The God that I think is pretty clear in Scripture speaks about a God who is first patient. And then he is kind. I can see him kind of leaning over to Paul and going like, hey, put patience first. Make sure you put kindness next. Because that's the definition of love, in that he will always show up for us in that, even as we're navigating what our body needs, what our mind has become accustomed to. And as we're learning how to navigate that incredible, awful, wonderful free gift of free will that he's given us to choose with him present, that space in between of going, okay, God, I need to choose you. I need to choose to learn what my body needs. And I can choose a new pattern. I can choose a new habit. That's a hard space to navigate. But even as we're navigating that with faith, to say, I don't have to add shame to that, because this is real. If I can say that really clearly, like, stress is real. And that anxious thought is so natural. It's part of how he's wired us to stay alive, right? To keep moving.
Right.
So if I can offer that as kind of an encouraging thought of when that stress comes up and we're navigating it and we're choosing, if we can choose, everybody has a different relationship with God. They have a different experience of encountering him. But just keeping in the back of our mind that truth in scripture that he's kind and he's patient, and inviting him into that process feels clunky and weird at the first time. It feels really awkward, but it's real. And that he's patient with us in that process. And that's part of what we do when we're talking about, what does my body need? My signals are going off, but okay, so what do I need right now? In kindness, I can receive kindness from my own self and from the Lord. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I love that. I think that is so awesome. And I love that you brought in that aspect of who God is, and who he created us to be. And you also mentioned, those signals. I think one of the biggest things that I have learned on this MyCounselor.Online team, getting to like interview all of the different counselors, is our emotions are indicators. And that's something I feel like I was never taught. Like, I probably didn't learn that until this year, talking with so many counselors and so many of them being like, your emotions are not bad. They're indicators. They're important. They matter. You don't want to like push them away because they are important. They signal, there's trouble, or they signal your body needs this, your mind needs this, your spirit, your soul needs this. They're so important. So I love that you brought that faith aspect into it, and who God is and who he created us to be. But let's move into those 4 stress relievers that you mentioned that can actually lead to maybe more stress or just stealing our peace. So let's chat through kind of each of them. I want you to expand a little bit on each that you mentioned. So the first one that you mentioned is one that we talked about at the beginning, and one that I think a lot of people think of when they think, ooh, you can relieve your stress by exercise. Let's talk about it. What are your thoughts? Kind of expand on why this could actually be stealing peace.
Yeah, rip the Band-Aid off, please.
There you
go. We are all fans of endorphins. I love them. We know that happens in good exercise routines, but I am just as guilty as the next person. I'm a runner. I love to run. I love the runner's high. I love the release. I love how tired I feel. And those are all those good chemicals that our body needs, right? But like us humans, as we are, we tend to go back to that thing and go, if I feel like this good all the time, then I'm just going to go to this. I'm going to keep going here. And if it feels good, do it. We're wired that way. We don't want to stay around unpleasant things. So oftentimes what I wanted to kind of highlight in that was just what we do, because we're human, is to go, it's okay to notice the rest is important too. That just as good as it feels to feel those good chemicals, it's also important when we balance out and do rest well. Our body actually can't recuperate, and we can't have the full benefit. Otherwise, I start just getting on another type of hamster wheel, and I start just spinning and spinning. I didn't run today. And that adds to our anxiety. It adds to our, I didn't do these things. Am I worthless? Am I falling off the track?
That shame piece, like you mentioned before.
Piece. Yeah. And it just weaves together. And that's not what it was designed for. So, and even if you'll talk to athletic trainers, I have some of those in my family. They like to help me stay out of injury zone, thank God, or I would do it because I like to feel good. So I would run more. And they've all told me, if you don't let your body rest, give it the fuel it needs, give it the physical rest, the stretches, those anaerobic kind of exercises, all the in-between things that your body's designed to do, then it can't actually reap the full benefits of the exercise itself. If you push so hard, your body can't regenerate those cellular level needs quick enough. So I was like, oh, I can do that. I like days off. Yes, I can do that. So giving yourself that kind of mental permission to say, no, this is my day off. I'm resting. I'm enjoying the benefits of whatever exercise you enjoy is just as beneficial.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And I think that that's encouraging to hear as someone who likes to run, but like maybe doesn't do it enough or doesn't feel like they do it enough. And to be like, okay, like I'm not failing. I'm not worthless. I'm not putting myself in a situation that is stressful, like by not doing that. I'm just doing what's best for my body and my mind. And everyone is so different, right? Like for some people, like, I have friends who running really is like their stress reliever and they want to do that like multiple times in the week and they know that that's what their mind needs. Mm-hmm. I'm not that person. I like to run for fun, not to relieve stress. Like, yeah. You know what I mean? I don't really want to run when I'm stressed. Like it doesn't really fuel that in me. So I think that that's really cool. So the next one that you mentioned is music and calming sounds. I thought this one was interesting because I actually personally like relate to kind of the opposite of that. As you mentioned in the article, kind of silence and that piece. Because I have a really hard time with music and sounds when I am really, really stressed. Like it really elevates that for me. So I'm curious what your thoughts are and if you can expand on this.
Yeah, no, I love that you highlighted that too, that difference, because so many people are in a different place. A lot of times our news feed is first, it's news feed. It's sound bites all the time. And we're used to that. We become accustomed to it. So I don't know how many apps, I should have written the number down. I found so many apps for ambionic sounds and just all this calming music. There's a lot of technology out there for it. So it just started telling me like, this is not unique to one person. So simply just looking at our culture in itself, that we're used to a stream of awareness, we're used to a stream of information, and we're used to that place of noise. Even as calming as it can sound, what you highlighted is exactly true. Our mind and our physical senses are actually kind of raw when stress is really high, and it can add to that sense of being stressed out, right? So when you allow yourself that space to just be quiet, to just maybe not fill it with another activity too, but just notice like, man, what are my own thoughts?
Totally. For me, I feel like it is a bit of a sensory overload when I have sounds and like, movement and things like that while I'm stressed. For me, it's just sort of too much. Like it'll put me, like I said before, like I do have an anxiety disorder. It will put me like in a really bad spot if I kind of let all of these things in, and people even like if I'm like, hey, why don't like I invite over 5 of my friends right now in this very stressful, anxious place that I'm in. That is more of a sensory overload for me than anything else.
You got it. Yeah, you nailed it. And that's exactly the place of when you're tuning in. The whole point of looking at this is just to go, it's okay to tune in to say, what do I need? Mm-hmm. What is not on Facebook? What is not on Pinterest? What is not? Yes, these are the 5 recommended areas that are really helpful if you need soothing techniques, but being able to tune into what is unique to my body. Yeah. What do I need in this moment? And it's such a great piece to be able to realize like silence really helps, even if it feels unfamiliar. For a lot of us and a lot of families I've walked through different things with, noise is a norm. And it's really hard to dial that down and to realize I can be at peace in a lack of sound. It's just been their norm. So trying something new with quiet, maybe something like a little awkward at first. So like, what do I do? What do I do with my hands? What do you mean I just close my eyes and it's quiet? Just try it. Try and see what difference you notice.
Yeah. Yes. So then moving into that next piece, which is social connection, is the next that you mentioned. Will you kind of expand on that? Because obviously one of the big things that we're told always, in the church, in counseling, all of this is the importance of connecting with people. So I would love kind of your thoughts on, social connection, and then also like making time for yourself and kind of what's the balance there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of the reasons I wanted to pull that, especially this year, COVID has been so hard on so many people, and the isolation does such damage to, we are created to be social beings. Mm-hmm. We absolutely are. And I'm so tender to those places, especially the elderly and people with exacerbated health conditions and things that are just making things so hard. Mm-hmm. But in this place of being aware that sometimes in our need to feel connected and to feel loved and to feel just the joy of being around people, sometimes when there's a deeper need going on that started the anxiety, that started the stress, if it's an emotional need, if it is a place of just navigating change in life, goodness, if there's ever a year of change, it's 2020, and the unexpected. Sometimes that balance can get overtipped when we just want to continue to talk about the issue, or we just want to be distracted maybe from the issue with people we love, people that bring a lot of life to us. But if we don't also give a little bit of elbow room for our own thoughts, to allow maybe just a small getaway, or maybe just a day to say, you know what, I haven't slowed down just to hear me. I haven't slowed down in that space again, just to say, I can appreciate all the differences we have. I can appreciate my family deeply. Not that absence makes the heart grow fonder. Just an awareness that, you know what, I need to hear my own thoughts. I need to take a little care for what my needs are in that moment. It's not a perfect balance, but it's just an awareness. The question to keep bringing to our own hearts is like, am I feeling the need to connect with the Lord? Am I feeling the need to feel more at peace with busyness with people? Am I distracting myself from actually doing the work of sitting with my own thoughts? And actually, maybe it's making a budget. Maybe it's filling out that job application. Maybe it's taking the nap. Holy naps. They are so holy. Do them. It's good for you. If it's distracting from that work that we need to do, then it's actually going to put us out of balance again. Does that make sense? I hope.
Yeah, totally. And then the last one that you mentioned, a stress reliever that could actually be stealing your peace, is organization and planning. What does that even mean exactly?
Okay, so I'm guilty of this one too. I love Erin Condren and Blue Sky and all those happy little organizational books and the tabs and the stickers, and I'm a fan, right?
Same. I am very I won't even lie. I won't even lie about it. I'm a type A person. Like, I love to have things laid out. I have like calendars for different things.
Yeah. I got the bullet journal for this. I've got the calendar app. I've got my reminders have reminders.
Right.
Yeah. And it's helpful. And even in our rooms, our structure of our homes, a lot of literature being put out in these last couple of years about what order does for your mental sanity.
Oh, Mary, I have to fill you in that. And like we said, like, everyone is so different, right? So like the calming sounds, not great for me. Organization, routine, so key in my stress. So key. But obviously, like, everybody's different. But I love hearing you say that, because as someone with an anxiety disorder, as someone who does experience stress pretty regularly, organization and really the structure of my home, how my environment looks, is really important, and totally affects my mental state. You know, if I walk into a dirty house after being out with friends, I am probably going to walk into like a little bit of a mental breakdown a little bit, because I everything doesn't look orderly. Like, maybe if I forget to do my nightly routine, I might wake up the next morning and be like a little bit off, which sounds weird, but that's just the way that my mind kind of functions.
Yeah. And it's so natural and it's so true. And I'm so glad we have a lot of the research that's coming out now of how your environment really affects you. And you know when I'm having a rough day because my laundry's not done and my dishes are still in my sink. I'm like,
Yes.
I don't want to look at it. Right. But in that that place, it reflects what's going on inside of us. So that's simply the place I wanted to bring to the surface for me. Again, I have to start with me, and then the friends that I know struggle and walk through this, is that I can schedule myself out of receiving joy. I can schedule my day so tightly that I miss the experience of the unexpected in a good way. Now, I fully support when you're walking through experiencing anxiety about how do I know what's going to happen? Structure helps. Structure is a great tool. It's supportive. It's wise. It's wisdom to have a good plan. and to be responsible with the gifts, the talents, and the jobs that we've been given. That's being a good steward, right? But in this space in between, if I get so whittled down to, I don't have time for that because I scheduled this, or I structured my house to look like this. I don't leave room for other people's personalities. I don't ultimately leave room for my own personality to keep growing and learning who I am if I hold so tightly to that one plan. Mm-hmm. And I don't leave room for the Lord to bring me a new experience of maybe this person has a little different take when you first get married. Who knows how many times your house just turns upside down. You're going, oh my gosh, you really put it there? Like, why? Or a roommate situation or whatever. You're like, do you never do this?
So much.
What is going on? Why? How did you survive? You don't have any plans. Like, you can't go out to that extreme. But being in that place where you're just like, gosh, I've got to have wiggle room for something. There's something that God wired us with. Mm-hmm. Being able to discover that's also creating a smaller window to experience faith in a different way, if I can say it that way. It's an exercise of faith to go, God, I feel safe when I have a plan. But then I also can turn back to the word and remember he has been, he will be, and he has always been. He's never surprised by anything. And that gives me the confidence to be able to lean in. Maybe it's not a leap of faith, maybe it's a lean. To say, God, I want to experience something new with you. If it's in my planning, if it's in my self-care routine, if it's in my schedule, if something goes out of whack, I can lean close to you and know that you weren't surprised by this and you're going to help me navigate it as it happens.
Wow. You just spoke directly to me. Beautiful. So good. So good. And I loved, my favorite thing that you just said was that you can schedule yourself out of like joy, and out of like unexpected, like spontaneity, things that God wants to do, and putting your trust in the Lord. And I just think that is, so good. So last bit, would love for you to just give a word of encouragement to someone watching who maybe struggles with stress, who's maybe feeling the stress right now of 2020 and the holidays and everything that's coming up and happening. What is kind of a word of encouragement at the end of this article that you'd like to give to them?
Yes. Oh, I so feel that too. Our own family is navigating, protecting measures for those that are at risk. And the grief, that's like a small mini grief that you're like, man, I can't even have this right now. In that place of just being able to not quite plan for surprises, but almost like the flexibility, being able to go, okay, God, you're with me in this moment. First of all, it's so real. It is so real. And I'm hurting with you. We are all hurting. And the ability to kind of give yourself the permission to just feel that, go, you know what, this is sad. And I'm kind of angry about it. And God, this doesn't feel okay. This really doesn't feel fair. I really wish I could have this. It's almost like instead of trying to hold that balloon underwater, your arms are going to get tired after a minute and it's going to shoot off and hit somebody else in the face. If you can give yourself, or me, usually it's me, if you can give yourself that permission to kind of let some of that air out a little bit at a time, just be honest. Right. Go, we got to be flexible. We got to figure out, maybe we're all having Zoom Thanksgiving. I don't know. But certainly in this time of stress, being able to find ways that let a little bit of that air out so that you're not alone. Know that for sure. You're not alone in this. And that there's hope, that we can struggle and we can suffer in a way. There's a real grief in that place. And we're not alone in that. It's valid. And that while we're navigating and finding new traditions, we're going to look back at this year and go, oh my gosh, do you remember when 2020 happened? It was miserable. What did we had to wear masks to walk to the dinner table or whatever this season looks like. Being able to capture that moment and go, this was so unplanned. I so hated this experience. And there's real loss too. I know for a lot of people who are walking through intense grief, that is just part of the holidays themselves. It's a sad time for a lot of people, a lot of loss in families around this time of year. So just as an encouraging word to say, be honest. Be honest with your own heart. Be honest with your needs, and find someone in that social setting to say, hey, I just need a hug, or I need to just talk on the phone for a minute. I miss this. I really wish we could do this year. I miss so and so. Sharing a small memory that's helpful. Writing a letter to somebody that maybe you wish you could connect with in a different way. Anything that will help you in this season, in those small ways, letting that air out, that balloon underwater, if you will help you kind of walk through and navigate. It's not a perfect fix. This year is anything but predicted.
Yeah.
But it's real. It's so real, and you're not alone. And it's not permanent. And it's not, if I can say it this way, it's not punishment from the Lord either. Because that tries to creep into all of us, like, oh my gosh, what have I done to,
what did I do? Right.
contribute to this? What am I doing now? Like, he's hurting with us. The Psalms are full of his emotion. He's an emotional God. He thought it up to bring to us. And that is a place we can encounter him like we never could before. I don't know his kindness when I'm feeling okay, like when I'm hurting.
Right.
Can't let it in if I'm not kind of in that space. So I would be encouraging just in that way, just to be honest with him, be honest with your loved ones, and walk through it together and be open to just something different.